Most people think progress comes from pushing harder, more effort, more analysis, more persistence. But what if the very thing keeping you stuck is the direction you're facing? 反者倒之总. Reversal is the movement of the Tao. Lao Tzu wrote that 2,500 years ago, and it's the most practical idea you've never heard of. Think about something you've been struggling with. Maybe it's a business decision, a relationship problem, a project that hasn't moved for months. You've thought about it again and again. You've researched it. You've asked for advice. You've searched for answers. Yet somehow you're standing in exactly the same place. Why? Because most people don't search for truth. They search for confirmation. We look for information that supports what we already believe. We talk to people who agree with us. We follow voices that reinforce our existing views. And over time, something strange happens. The more certain we become, the less we can see. The mind becomes like a river. When you're inside the current, all you feel is movement, but you cannot see where the river is going. For that, you must step onto the bank, and that's where Lao Tzu begins. The phrase is simple. 反之倒之总. Reversal is the movement of the Tao. Many people misunderstand it. Lao Tzu is not saying that everything merely goes up and down. He is pointing to something deeper. When anything reaches an extreme, it begins moving toward its opposite. Look at nature. Day turns into night, summer turns into winter, a full moon begins to wane. Growth contains decline. Strength contains weakness. Completion contains the beginning of change. This isn't failure, it's transformation. And Lao Tzu believed the same principle appears in human thinking. When certainty becomes absolute, blindness begins. When confidence becomes excessive, mistakes multiply. When we become trapped inside one perspective, movement often arrives from the direction we've ignored. That is fun. Reversal. Not moving backward. Turning. In 1985, Steve Jobs was removed from Apple, the company he had founded, the product he had built his entire identity around, by his own board. He didn't take it quietly. He was furious. He fought it. He was certain he was right and they were wrong. And for a while, he disappeared entirely. But something happened during those years away. Forced out of the current he'd been swimming in for a decade, he landed somewhere unexpected. He bought a small animation studio struggling to survive. He built a new computer company from scratch, without the pressure of running Apple. He started seeing things he had never seen from inside. What made a product truly great? What made a team genuinely creative? What he had been too certain about to question. When he returned to Apple 12 years later, he didn't come back with more of the same. He came back having turned around. And what followed was one of the most dramatic reversals in business history. Lao Tzu didn't know Steve Jobs, but he described exactly what happened to him. Fan. The movement comes from turning toward what you've been forced to see. Once you understand this idea, you start seeing it everywhere. In markets, when optimism becomes extreme, people stop seeing risk. When everyone becomes convinced prices can only rise, the conditions for decline are already forming. The danger isn't pessimism. The danger is certainty. In organizations, many companies fail not because they were weak. They fail because they became successful. Success creates habits. Habits become assumptions. Assumptions become blind spots. The very thing that created growth eventually prevents adaptation. Charlie Munger put it directly. He said he never allows himself an opinion on anything unless he knows the other side's argument better than they do. Munger wasn't quoting Lao Tzu, but the principle is the same. The movement comes from turning toward what you've ignored. Today, psychologists use a different term, confirmation bias. Our minds naturally seek evidence that supports existing beliefs, and we tend to avoid information that challenges them. This isn't a character flaw, it's a human tendency. When someone disagrees with us, we often become defensive. Not because we're irrational, because our brains are designed to protect existing models of reality. Modern psychology describes this tendency scientifically. Lao Tzu observed a similar pattern philosophically. Both point toward the same practical problem. The perspective you're protecting may be the very thing preventing you from seeing clearly. Here's what most self-improvement advice leaves out. Understanding fan is not the hard part. The hard part is what turning actually costs. Because you're not just protecting an opinion, you're protecting yourself. If you've spent years building a career on a certain belief, if your relationships, your reputation, your sense of who you are, all rest on seeing things a particular way, then turning around doesn't just feel wrong, it feels like disappearing. Steve Jobs didn't leave Apple thinking, great, now I get to see things differently. He left feeling like he had lost everything that mattered. The reversal only became visible looking back. And that is the real reason most people stay stuck. Not because they lack information, not because they're not intelligent enough, but because seeing clearly requires letting go of something that feels like it defines you. Lao Tzu knew this. That is why he didn't say reversal is easy. He said reversal is the movement of the Tao, meaning it is the nature of things, not a choice, a recognition. There is an old Chinese saying, 闻过则喜. Rejoice when you hear your faults. For most people, criticism feels uncomfortable. We resist it, defend against it, explain it away. But this saying suggests something radical. What if criticism is valuable precisely because it hurts? What if discomfort is not a warning sign, but a signal that you've found a blind spot? The person who tells you what everyone else is too polite to say. They're not attacking you. They're showing you the bank from inside the river. That is the practice. Not agreement, not surrender. Recognition. So how do you apply this? Think about a problem you're facing right now. Ask yourself 3 questions. First, what do I currently believe? State it clearly, not vaguely, specifically. Second, what would have to be true for the opposite to be true? Don't argue with it, don't defend yourself, just explore it. Third, what evidence am I refusing to look at? This is usually the hardest question, and often the most valuable, because the goal isn't to prove yourself wrong. The goal is to see more than you could see before. For 60 seconds, step out of the river. Look from the bank, and notice what becomes visible. Most people think progress comes from moving forward. Lao Tzu saw something different. Sometimes progress begins with turning around. The obstacle is not always outside you. Sometimes it's the perspective you've been protecting. The answer you're searching for may not be hidden. It may simply be located in the one direction you've refused to look. That is the meaning of fanzhe, Dao Zhizong. Reversal is the movement of the Tao. And according to Lao Tzu, there is another force that makes this movement possible. Not strength, not control, not domination, but something far more surprising: weakness. And that's where we'll go next.